Hold on a second, you're not Matt.
Yep, I'm afraid I've escaped the cupboard, back in the kitchen, and I'm taking the place of Matt for today.
Listener, we are indeed Mattless this week. He's had a nightmare week at work, and this has meant a promotion for Theo.
Bit like Craig Short stepping in the last minute, or David Oldfield, or a Mike Ford.
Or Gary Waddock?
Hope not.
Theo, because you are taking the place of Matt, it is traditional that I always start with a quiz. Okay. You're going to have to be the lucky or unlucky person that has to do the quiz. Do you have a pen and paper ready?
I certainly do.
Okay, you might need this. I have created a little media asset for this as well, for those of you who are watching on YouTube. The quiz is, what connects the following Oxford employees? So let me run the video. Right, here we go. We have big-headed former Air Reserve striker Nigel Jempson. We have 1980s goal-getter supreme John Aldridge. We have a winless manager and Milk Cup loser Gary Waddock. We have permatanned shot fluffer Nicky Banger. We have mustachioed resigner Mark Lawrenson. We have Milk Cup hero Ray Houghton. And last but not least, our very own smiling hipster, Tom Bradshaw. In the unlikely event that you know the answer to this, please don't answer now. Let's save it for the end for our listeners and viewers. There is also a part 2 to this quiz, which I will set at the end. Also, how are you feeling?
Not sure I'm going to get that quiz, to be honest. I was looking at maybe a bit of a Merseyside connection, but I think there's a couple that fall down on that. So interesting to see what comes at the end.
Indeed. Shall we run this thing and get this show on the road?
Let's do it.
The big man with a big goal on the big occasion.
Okay, everyone, welcome to episode 9, the one they're calling The One Without Matt. If you tune in for Matt's chat about his goals for Banbury, I'm afraid you're in the wrong place this week. What we have coming up, we review 4 points, 3 games and 2 goals by local heroes, and of course, one big looming issue. We work out definitively whether we're going to stay up or not using Theo's relegation statilyzer, and we hark back to the spring of 2006 for a bit of nostalgia. Painful nostalgia. There's plenty more as well. Theo, let's start though with Cardiff. You were there, I wasn't, but what a goal.
What a goal. What a man Cameron Brannigan is, stepping up when we absolutely needed him the most.
Unbelievable. Talk us through it. You were there, just talk us through the whole game.
Well, it was all fairly desperate, really. We hardly made a pass in the first half. A couple of players, especially kind of Shemi and a few others, having a bit of a shocker, really. The lack of kind of ambition seemed quite evident, but also it just wasn't clicking. It just wasn't happening for them. There was no lack of effort. You've got to say that's been the case all through this whole season. The players have absolutely given it everything, but nothing was coming off, and it was only ever going to be a moment of magic that got us anything out of that game. And if you're a Cardiff, I saw Ramsey was interviewed afterwards. If you're a Cardiff fan, you'd be thinking, what on earth have we got to do to win a game? We've limited them to 2 shots, one of them from 35 yards out, and we've only come away with a point.
When I was watching, the internet cut out just before the free kick and then came back on with everyone celebrating. So I was just, oh my God, we've scored, which didn't look like happening from that position.
How did you think we'd scored based on where the free kick was? And
I assume somehow we got a throw in from that. I genuinely don't know. So then obviously like my WhatsApp filled up with messages going, oh my God. So then, I had to wait until they kind of showed a replay, and it was truly a remarkable hit. I think everyone agrees that it was an absolute stinker of a performance, but I just think the key thing here was just avoiding defeat.
Absolutely. I mean, given the time of season, you take the point and move on. I think going into kind of detailed analysis of what we should and shouldn't change for these last 2 games feels a bit irrelevant, really. We're going to approach them the same as we've approached all of Rowett's games. It has brought us a decent points return, hasn't it? Overall, it's not been the most exciting to watch, but there's no way it's going to change. We're not going to suddenly turn into a free passing attacking team for the last 2 games of the season.
Before that, we had the Leeds game. You were there. I was literally doing a deep clean of a fairly grim bathroom at the time. Unlike my evening, this wasn't a stinker, despite the defeat.
It certainly wasn't. I really enjoyed this game, despite losing. I thought, again, that effort that I was talking about at the Cardiff game was definitely there. Maybe too much, given the inability to make a pass at Cardiff. But we put a lot into it. There were some fantastic performances. Matos was brilliant. Nelson at the back was brilliant. And we gave them a run for their money. I mean, Leeds are just a brilliant football team. And the difference in golfing class of player, but also wages and transfer fees, and the fact they could bring Bamford and Dan James on with 20 minutes to go just shows how difficult it was always going to be for us to get a result against them. But there felt like that was the first time, which I sort of has dipped again, but it was the first time I truly believed we weren't going to go down, because there was a connection between the players and the fans that you very rarely get amongst teams that are relegated. And at the end, the noise in the last 5 minutes, even though we weren't creating a lot, kind of a few half chances, the noise from the Oxford fans was absolutely brilliant. And you could feel that there was an appreciation of the effort the players were putting in. And at that, given all the other results that went on that day, and the fact that we'd run Leeds close, that moment I really didn't feel like we were going down. However, Monday then happened. I don't feel so safe anymore.
Since we last recorded, which was just after the QPR fiasco, we had one other great performance, which kind of came, I felt, almost a bit from the blue. We had the 1-0 win at Sheffield Wednesday. I'd had a bit of a skinful on the Stella Express with Matt, so this might cloud my judgment, but I thought it was a bloody great performance.
Yeah, I was actually at, keep this quiet, I was at a rugby match at the same time, because my son's rugby team was flag bearing for their first team. So that was something I could not get out of. So it was quite a weird experience, because I was streaming the game on a perfectly legal website on my phone while these enormous blokes were running into each other just 10 feet away. I think it was a good performance. I think that it's one of those classic rowets that could have gone either way. The Sheffield Wednesday had chances. We created a bit, but not a huge amount. And then just a wonderful moment with Long popping up for the goal, and his story continues to get better and better with his involvement with the club.
It was truly a lovely, lovely moment. Altogether, great day out. If you haven't been to Sheffield recently, it is a lovely city and just great places to drink in the centre of town. So we've taken 4 points from the last 3 games. We're up 49 in total. Honestly, I thought that was going to be plenty to keep us up. Now we've got bloody Luton and Derby in these ridiculous runs of form. You've already said you're feeling a bit nervous. Tell me more about that.
Yes, frustrating that Luton and Derby have found some form over the last month. Luton are a bit of a funny one, because I think we've highlighted them in previous Stats Kitchens, how they're missing lots of big chances. And if you care about XG and that kind of thing, they have been massively underperforming their XG all season, and until the last month, when they're actually starting to hit kind of what you'd expect with their attacking output, which is worrying, because that means they might do it. They've been doing similar things all season. They're now getting maybe the rewards for it, and they've only got to do it twice more and get good results, and they might just find a way out of it, which even 2 weeks ago was looking incredibly unlikely. And Derby have hugely improved under John Eustace. Good run, a bad defeat against Luton. I mean, imagine they'd won that, and they'd be right on us. And again, they've got games that they'll back themselves in when they come up against Hull this weekend, and I think it's Stoke the following weekend. 2 games that if you were in Derby's position, you'd be thinking, yeah, absolutely, give us 6 points, even 4 points, and that should be enough to keep us in the league, which is concerning.
So we've been running a little bit of a competition on our hugely popular socials, asking what was the best ever goal scored by an Oxford player in Cardiff, not just against Cardiff, but actually in Cardiff. Our millions of listeners and watchers have had to pick, Theo, from these 3 beauties.
That it was United show. Centre stage, Paul Moody. You tend to think of him as a big bulldozer of a striker, but he can play a bit too. Here's the proof of a goal that any World Cup centre-forward would be proud of.
So we have Paul Moody's goal there.
Oxford have managed just one league win since late November, but they scored first through Matt Murphy's 14th goal of the season, a genuine goal of the season contender.
A goal that I actually saw live, the only one of these 3 goals I saw live.
It's teed up for Brannigan to hit! A stunner! A huge goal in the context of the bottom of the championship table.
And of course, we have Cameron Brannigan's thunderbolt from the weekend. Despite having billions of followers on all of our social accounts, Theo, we didn't actually get that many comments. Tell me, first of all, which one do you think was the best of the 3?
I mean, there's a bit of recency bias, but I feel like it's Brannigan for me. The importance of it, the distance. I on that socials, I but I suggested that the defending wasn't very good for Moody's goal. But actually watching it there's only maybe one defender that really jumps out of the way. So maybe I was being a bit too harsh on Moody. But equally with Brannigan's, if you look at the player whose job it is to charge it down, I mean, he runs into absolute no man's land. So I think I'm going to take the defending factors out of my decision making and give Moody a bit more credit than I did in the initial comment.
We did have one lovely comment on our socials. This came from somebody called Big D Woolley. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He says, if pressed, it's Brannigan as long as we stay up due to its importance and, of course, recency bias. Otherwise, Moody, possibly the greatest individual goal in Oxford United history.
I think the individual goal is an interesting addition to that because it absolutely... I can't think. Well, Bobby Ford actually, who we're about to come on to, he scored that wonder goal at Southampton, didn't he? That was dribbling through the whole team. Another thing I will say, because we haven't discussed the Murphy goal either, is I absolutely love a volley, and there was some discussion about whether he shinned it or not. It looks the way the ball curls in, it looks pretty sweetly hit to me, and I'm always up for a volley, always up for giving a volley credit.
It was truly an amazing goal.
Where were you in the ground? Behind the goal or at the other end?
No, we weren't. We were side on. We were, they kind of stuck us in the kind of corner, but side on. Interestingly, though, that game finished 1-1. 2 teams were scrapping out at the end of that season to go down. One of them was Cardiff City, and the other one was Oxford United. And we stayed up and they went down after the 1-1 draw. So maybe there's an omen for you.
You'd be pretty frustrated if you're a Cardiff fan to see that those are the goals we score against them. No tap-ins, just worldies when Oxford come to town.
Of course, Plaheta got one this season as well at our place, which we didn't put in because it wasn't in Cardiff. We've also had on our socials, there was a lot of love for the Bobby Ford song, which I mentioned last week.
Am I supposed to sing it now? Oh,
yeah,
Bobby Ford, something.
Oh, Bobby Ford, Bobby Ford. I thought it'd be really good fun to sing to him, but the interesting thing about Bobby Ford is he has totally vanished off the face of the earth. Totally Lord Lucan style. Totally and utterly. There is a rumour on the Rage On website that he is now a plumber in Bristol. So me being me, I've genuinely tried to spend a bit too much time this week trying to find him. I have genuinely tried all of the R. Ford plumbers in the West Country, and not one has admitted to being him. I've also tried at the club, and no one at the club has a contact, and also former people at the club I've tried, and they haven't got a contact either. It just seems that he's vanished and is living this kind of life of anonymity. Theo, you live in Bristol. Can you go on the lookout for him for me?
I've just had our sink and toilet fixed. I don't need a plumber anytime soon, but when I do, I will certainly ask around.
He was a beautiful player. If you haven't watched him play, do look up his unbelievable goals. The one he got against Southampton, I think, is in the League Cup. We lost, didn't we? But he just dribbled through absolutely everyone, just dinked it in.
I think we'd just gone, maybe they'd just scored. It was straight from kickoff. See, I remember that game because I was not very old, maybe 11, and I was listening to it under my duvet because it was fairly late at night. and I knew that the radio would get taken off me. So I was listening to the wonderful Radio Oxford commentary, and I think we went, I may be wrong here, but I think we went 3-1 down, and then Bobby Forge scored that goal. And the Radio Oxford team are absolutely brilliant, but their description of that goal bears almost no resemblance to what actually happened. But maybe that's because it was just so brilliant. That how do you describe someone skipping through the team like that?
My memory of it was, for some reason, they haven't got the main camera angle, so they've just got this kind of funny angle on the highlights, which doesn't quite do it justice, I think, as a goal. But I will try and dig it out and edit it onto this bit that you are listening to, and you can watch it on our YouTube. We are on YouTube. We are also on Instagram. You Are My Oxford Pod. Not doing very well on Instagram, but we are also on Blue Sky. You Are My Oxford Pod. We are on YouTube. Just You Are My Oxford, where we're having huge success. Our shorts are doing huge business there. If any local businesses are listening and want to sponsor us, that might convince you to do so. And we are also on TikTok, where you have to go to my personal account, which is You Are My Oxford Podcast Dan. Bit of a mouthful. Talking of socials, Theo, you have also set up an Instagram account. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, struggling a little bit with follower numbers as we do with new accounts. It is a Instagram account called Theo Stats Kitchen, where I will post kind of shorts, clips, loads about Ole Romney to try and get the Indonesian views. But yeah, just a little kind of add-on to all the socials you just mentioned, Dan, where we specifically look at the stats.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't like us either, because we are definitely struggling a bit on Instagram. I guess Instagram is not where you go for your football content. Anyway, rather than make you do stats, we thought we'd make you do a real-life end of season prediction thing using your high-tech relegation statilyzer. Theo, how does this wonderful machine work?
Oh, wow. It's very complicated. You put the results in and it gives you a table. Absolute magic. So how we're going to make this work is, Dan, you're going to predict what you think the results are, and I'm going to click through on a worst case scenario basis. And we're going to have a look at what the tables pop up for us with a little bit of discussion of each game in between.
So I'm just trying to predict. I'm going to not try to be too pessimistic.
Yeah, you remember I've got the pessimistic absolute worst case, so you can have a bit of positivity in your predictions.
All right, cool. Let's do this.
So, first game is Stoke against Sheffield United. Sheffield United are in a bit of a stinking run. No chance of top two anymore. Stoke were on the beach at 3:00 on Monday, got absolutely hammered, and are now sort of back in it due to other results. How do you see this one?
I think this is definitely a Sheffield United win. I think they have to get a bit of momentum going. And I think the pressure has been on them for the past few weeks and it's affected them. But now the pressure's off. I'm saying Sheffield United to win this game. Come on, Chris Wilder.
I say he owes us one, but he did get promoted, so perhaps he doesn't. So obviously the worst case for this, and weirdly at bookies' favourites, is a home win in this game, which is obviously Stoke to beat Sheffield United. And any kind of result for Stoke, but definitely a win, would take them fully out of the relegation battle. Next up, 12:30 tomorrow, massive game. 12:30 on Saturday, massive game. Luton against Coventry, both ends of the table. It matters. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about this, but I also think that Coventry need a result, don't they? Because there's a team below them who's kind of chasing them for that last playoff spot.
That's right.
I'm going to go draw. A draw, I think, in this one.
Worst case scenario, obviously, would be a Luton win. Now we're at Cardiff, West Brom.
I'm slightly worried that Cardiff might do this. I'm going to go Cardiff. But I'm just going to say one good thing. I think if Cardiff do win this, then they're still in it going into the last game, which I think increases the likelihood of Swansea doing us a favour.
Yeah, I wish I could agree with you on that one, but with the caretaker manager trying to get the job permanently, I don't think he'll give two hoots about whether Cardiff go up or down. Worst case scenario, obviously Cardiff win. Hull Derby, this is an interesting one.
This is a critical one. I'm going to go for a draw. I think they're both going to be battling so hard. That is a draw.
So, it's difficult to say what the worst case is. What do you think,
I
Dan?
read somewhere the worst case scenario is a Derby win. That was. Let's go with a Derby win as the worst case scenario.
I think you're right there. And then us against Sunderland.
Not feeling good, I'm not going to lie. It depends. If we come out like we did against Sheffield United and just stick it to them, we've got much more riding on this game, but I think we have to really go out and stick it to them. Let's say a draw. Let's say a draw.
I think with Sunderland, they've had a weird season, haven't they? Because they've been in the playoffs guaranteed since about January. They've hardly scored a goal in the last few. They've lost 4 of the last 5, I think. But their manager came out after their last defeat and said, sort of like, now we go, kind of team talk of playing full strength. My hope is that if there's a 50-50 or, it starts to get a bit bitty and there's niggly fouls, that they just think, we want none of this. We don't like a red card, a straight red tomorrow for a Sunderland player means they miss both semi-final legs. Like that's something that will be hopefully in the back of their minds. But having said all that, I think I agree that a draw is quite a likely result. If, however, results, especially at Luton, have gone against us or they are going against us, that might give that with the 20 minutes to go, if it's 1-1 or something, that might open the game up and then all 3 results are possible. And I wouldn't want to predict who would come out on top in an open game. Probably Sunderland. Preston, Plymouth.
Interesting one. Plymouth are kind of on the charge. Preston are on the sink. I'm going to go Plymouth.
Plymouth, that would get them within 3 points of us, assuming we were of our current total. Worst case, I mean, Plymouth, given their goal difference, I don't think they can get past us. Preston are just about still in it. A point tomorrow would obviously take us above them as we're level on points. So would we say worst case scenario maybe is a home win because it takes Preston out of the equation?
Yeah, I think it probably does, yeah.
And Plymouth would obviously be down. Okay, so that takes us through to the final day of the season now. Preston, according to our predictions, your predictions are still in it. They've got Bristol City last day of the season at Ashton Gate. It's not an easy game.
Bristol City.
Yep. I think they'll almost certainly need something. Worst case result, obviously, is Preston. Then it's Derby and Stoke.
Draw.
I think a draw is quite likely there, and that would be good news for us as well. Worst case there would be a Derby win, I would have thought, because that would take them really close to us. Norwich against Cardiff. This one is at Norwich.
Who've got nothing to play for.
No, and they've been rubbish for about a month, haven't they?
Let's go Cardiff win.
Yeah. And that would obviously be the worst case scenario as well. Plymouth finish up at home to Leeds. What state will Leeds be in? Drunk? Hungover?
Still good though.
Still much better than Plymouth, I imagine.
Let's go. I do kind of see a Plymouth win there though. Plymouth to win.
It's getting tight. Pompey and Hull.
This could be our saviour. This is a draw, I think.
Worst case would be a Hull win. Let's do us last. So West Brom, Luton.
I mean, West Brom, obviously, they're playing a role in this, aren't they? West Brom, I think, got nothing to play for, and they just sacked their manager. So it's a Luton win.
Luton win, and that was the worst case. And then Swansea, Oxford to finish up, which I think we're all going to, aren't we?
We are going to it. Let's go for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think. And then
both teams scoring quite early, and then realising that if results stay that way, we are safe, and Cardiff are relegated. And it's big party in Swansea.
That would be nice. So, worst case scenario, which obviously has resulted in us being relegated, as we've lost both games, actually been relegated by quite a distance, 2 points. and a much worse goal difference than Hull. And it has us going down with Cardiff, who would also be on 49 points, and Plymouth back on 46. So as you probably expect, worst case scenario gets us relegated. But that is quite a set of results would be needed to get to that point. You have us in 18th.
Picking up 2 draws, I said. Wow.
2 draws, 51 points. We finish above Hull, above Luton, above Preston. Preston and your predictions drop to 21st and only escape on goal difference. And actually, Derby end up finishing bottom because I think you gave Plymouth 2 wins.
So that's interesting because, I mean, I thought I was being quite negative there. I was really worried. But actually, we're kind of 18th, almost playoffs.
I personally think 1 point will probably do it, but 2 draws, I'm not sure if there is a set of results that can relegate it. So maybe I'll play around afterwards and post it in the Stats Kitchen if there is. But I find it hard to believe there's a scenario where 51 points gets you relegated.
As you know, this podcast loves a bit of nostalgia, but I've got a slight feeling that this week's is going to bring back some horrible memories. Fair play to you, Theo, for using your presenting debut to open up this can of worms. We're going back to the 2006 season, which was the last time that we were relegated, which seems like a really long time to not be relegated. That's 20 odd years without being relegated, and hopefully it's longer after the next couple of results. It was truly a minging season where the last few months, it all just absolutely fell to rubbish. At one point in the season, Theo, because I've studied this season in great detail, we were 9th in about December. Remember, we won at Chester, and all the talk was, can we sneak into the playoffs? And instead, it ended up going utterly Pete Tong. Why do you want to talk about it?
Weirdly, when people say, what are your top 5, top 10 sporting events or matches you've ever been to, this one, I can't help but have it in there, despite the absolute agony of the final whistle. It was a game that had absolutely everything, which it's been covered elsewhere, but red cards, goals, Leyton Orient needing to win to go up, us needing to win to stay up. We had police horses on the pitch at the end of the game. I remember one brave Oxford fan, charging into the Leyton Orient pitch invasion to try and give them a bit of what for after the game. And it was a heartbreaking end to the season, but as a spectacle, it was quite something.
It was truly horrendous. My wife, funnily enough, actually worked for Leyton Orient Football Club at the time, which I've mentioned before on previous podcasts. So the team that was paying half of my mortgage was also the one that was relegating my beloved football team out of the Football League. Just as you say, absolutely ridiculous game, but just also the total mad end to the season as well, where it just seems so weird that every other result seemed to be going against us. Like Chester were absolutely dead and buried. And then I think Mark Wright took over there and kept them up. And then Ian Atkins took over at Torquay, who were dead and buried, and somehow managed to keep them. It was just literally the weirdest possible set of results. And we were such a mess at the time.
We were, and it came up sort of in that bad run of games we had in March, because that term sleepwalking to relegation. I felt like that was really the case in 2006, because we went the Jim Smith taking over as boss and everything. Everyone was feeling quite positive for a little bit, and we just kept dropping and dropping and dropping. Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I used to live in Leyton, and they've got a mural. I don't know if many Oxford fans will know this. They've got a mural of Lee Steele wheeling away after scoring that goal outside of the ticket office. So every morning, when I would cycle into central London for work, I would cycle past this bloody mural of one of the worst moments in our club's history. And I felt a bit sort of, I don't know if you remember, Lee Steele came over at the end of the game and sort of apologised, and obviously like not a particularly sensible thing to do, and he got absolutely pelters for it from the crowd. But amazing game, but terrible way to get relegated those few months.
I did a podcast, an official Oxford United podcast during lockdown about this, and we'd done like a number of different seasons, like almost all successful seasons. and we'd get like a former player in who has played a part in that season, but no player at all wanted to do the podcast. So we had to get Nathan on. Nathan, told some brilliant stories. It's still on YouTube, and I've actually put it on one of our playlists on our YouTube page. It was it was such a mess up of a season. Everything that went wrong. But actually, the worst thing that happened to the club that season wasn't the Orient game. To me, it was the moment that Nick Merry came in and bought the club, but not the ground. And that was the moment the two things separated. And ever since then, and until a new stadium happens or something miraculous happens, we are always going to be paying the price for that. Totally horrendous things. Any lessons we can? We're talking about this because I guess we're trying to learn some lessons from that season.
Keep your head. So there was a red card, wasn't there, in that game? I know, Shemi very nearly did something similar on Monday. He was. I didn't think that the foul that everyone was talking about was a straight red, but it could have been a second yellow if he'd been booked earlier. And we need 11 players on the pitch for these final two games, and I guess that goes for the fans as well. Especially, it's going to be in our hands on the last day of the season. We don't need to kind of, if there's a poor result on Saturday, this kind of knee-jerk. There was a little bit knee-jerk reaction to the Cardiff game of lots of criticism, with also understanding that it was a good point. But considering the games that had gone before Cardiff, I thought some of the criticism was a bit unnecessary. So just keep your head. That's my. If Nick Merry had kept his head and done a good deal, we'd be in a better spot. If we kept our head and kept Darren Patterson, we probably wouldn't have gone down. And if we keep our head this season, maybe it'll be the same.
Yeah, there was so much panicking going on at the end of that season, and I mean, there are some parallels. Like all the results seem to be going against us at the minute, but I just think the whole club is slightly more kind of pragmatically run at the moment. I think Gary Pragmat, as we called him in the first few episodes, is the right man for this right now.
And if you go back to what I was saying about the Leeds game, that positivity between the fans and the players, where it just feels like the fans appreciate that the players are giving everything. I do not remember feeling that in 2006. And it felt like we had a couple of players who had absolutely no interest in being at the club, as probably proven by the fact none of them wanted to talk about it on your podcast.
So it's that time of the week again. We'll invite you, our loyal, devoted and growing audience, to give us your hot take on something. This week, Joel Harrison has sent us a clip. It looks like he was on the Elizabeth line at the time. Let's have a listen to Joel.
My hot take is on people getting angry about the ball being played around the back four, between the back four and the goalkeeper. Into the midfield, back to the back four, back to the goalkeeper. This, for me, is modern football. It's 2025. We need to understand that the football has changed, and this isn't anymore about get the ball out quickly, down the wing, attack, lose possession, and then face an attack coming back at us. It's about finding opportunities. It's about looking after the ball. It's about keeping the ball. And if that's between the back four and the defensive midfield and the goalkeeper looking for those opportunities, that is not negative football, that's positive football, and I would highly encourage it. Don't do it, applaud it.
So, I'm guessing, given your statistical background and the things you comment on in our OUFC chat WhatsApp group, I'm guessing you like a little bit of tiki-taka as well and passing it around at the back. Or are you a get-it-launched person?
I'm certainly not a get-it-launched person. I like it when it's got purpose. And I think there has been times, particularly maybe under Robinson in recent years, where it's felt like we were keeping the ball just for the sake of it. I think with all this is going to be a bit of a boring answer, but I think it depends. Like if at the moment in the Championship, us keeping the ball for a couple of minutes, taking the sting out of the game, slowing things down, Leeds did it against us. That's what they did in the start of the second half. They just slowed it down. They stayed on the ground when they were fouled, and they kept the ball at the back. Like there is 100% a time and a place for it. I worry when it's up to your defenders and goalie to get the ball into the attacking bits of the pitch. It's like that's not what they're necessarily particularly good at. And if you end up with those players being the creative spark with Harris and your Shemis just sort of stood on the final man, that's I'm not sure we've seen much under Rowett that suggests that we're a team that are capable at this level of keeping the ball and playing it out and getting further forward.
I saw an interesting stat on TikTok, funny enough, because I'm down with the kids, and I was looking at our very popular TikTok page, which is doing reasonably well at the moment. But obviously, because some of our stuff is stat based, I think TikTok's worked out that I might be interested in football stats, which I'm not really. But it had something on Nottingham Forest saying how they are the opposite of keeping the ball at the back. They literally just let the opposition have the ball, then catch them on the counter attack, and that seemed to me like quite a sensible way of playing. No messing around at the back. Just literally let the opposition have it, then set little traps, nick the ball off them, and sprint down the field at high pace and score. Very easily done.
I wonder if we might see a bit more of that next season when we've actually got the forward players, maybe to kind of hurt teams a bit more. Bigger. When we got, we're potentially looking for a bigger striker with more of a presence where we can get the ball launched to him, and then the kind of quick wingers or quick forward players off him might be something that Rowett considers, because you look at the players in this league who are technical and quick and can create things in midfield, and they are £15 million players who we are not going to be able to attract. So we need to find another way of getting at the opposition.
There's a slightly wider point to what Joel was saying as well, which is the kind of the moaning and the groaning. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit earlier as well. There is, I think possibly because we've had such a successful period of the club. We've been relatively successful. We've had mostly winning seasons for about 20 seasons now. And I don't think us as fans are quite used to us struggling and losing games. And I think, things do turn really quickly. Like, there's somebody who sits near me in the East Stand who just loves shouting out abuse to the players. If somebody does something wrong, like, someone's running down the wing at pace and then scuffs across into touch, which happens when you're running at pace, he'll say, Shemi, you're useless or whatever. And I just think generally that's just so counterproductive. And I go on various kind of, Twitters and so on, and you see the kind of comments that people are making about players when we get a bad result. And Facebook's probably the worst for this. And you just think, what are you doing? If a player was to read this, you're not helping the player's confidence or anything. We're called supporters, and we're meant to be supporters, right? The clue's in the name. So I don't know, sounding a bit preachy here, but especially in the running, don't slag off our own players and don't boo them.
I just also think this season there aren't many, if any, players that really deserve. Like they're putting it in, I think, and there's a lack of quality as we see most games. But their desire and the spirit, especially since Christmas, has been, I think, undeniable. The worst for negativity, I think, was the post West Brom game. And there were the crowd leaving that game were really, it was a bad performance. It was pretty bleak, but the crowd were super negative. They gave Matt Phillips a really hard time when he came on, and I felt that I felt pretty low at that point, which resulted in me snapping at someone on a WhatsApp group, which I've since regretted. And I think there is something in your point that we expect to win games. However, I think overall the fan base have got it. They've understood what this season is all about. And I think there's just been a couple of moments. I picked that West Brom game. There were a couple in the autumn before Des was sacked where things just did slightly feel that gap in quality was just too big for us to consistently consistently close. And I think that's when we've seen the more negative points. And I think that's your point about how quickly it can turn, that we maybe aren't as aware of that as we should be.
Do you know what? I probably am a huge hypocrite because obviously I used to do the fanzine, which is called Yellow Fever, and we used to have players who we used to take the piss out of, one of whom we've kind of already mentioned a little bit today, Nicky Banger. But with hindsight now, I kind of regret it, right? Because it wouldn't have done him any good. In the unlikely event he was ever reading our fanzine, or if it turned more fans against him, it wouldn't have done any good. So, Nicky Banger, in the unlikely event that you're or stumble across us on socials, I'm deeply, deeply, deeply sorry for taking the piss out of you in public.
I'm sure he'd accept that apology.
So, Theo, 2 games left. We're going to be at both. We've kind of touched on this a little bit. How are you feeling about Sunderland, briefly?
Briefly, feeling good about our home performances generally. Think we'll give them a really good game. Think they are also clearly a good team because that's why they're fourth in the league. So positive, but aware of the opposition would be my summary.
I predicted a draw, which is, I think, is possibly a little bit optimistic, but I am sticking with it.
Well, we've got Swansea after that, obviously. You going to that, Dan?
I am going. I'm feeling currently sick at the prospect of it. I've never been to Swansea before. Have we ever played at their stadium before?
Not that I'm aware of. We played them at home in the FA Cup, didn't we? In 2016, but
I've never been to old or new Swansea ground, but I have been to Swansea twice. I had my brother's stag do there, and my God, Wine Street is some experience. Those of you who are going,
Wine Street.
It's a weekend I will never ever forget. Or in the case of Aussie Dave, who's on the stag do, it's a weekend he'll possibly never remember. Aussie Dave is one of our listeners. He is currently living in Malmo in Sweden. And I promised him I'd give him a mention. I didn't promise him I'd mention the weekend in Wine Street.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's fair to say that these last couple of games could be a lot of fun, and you never know. By 3:00 tomorrow, we might be pretty much safe, or absolute agony.
A bit like a night on Wine Street, really. Do recommend it though. If you are going to Swansea, have a night out on Wine Street. It is truly something.
Do the pubs open before 11:00? Because we need someone to go early
I don't think they shut.
Perfect.
So, Theo, let's do the quiz result. What connects the following players? We have Nigel Jemison, we have John Aldridge, we have Gary Waddock, we have the aforementioned Nicky Banger, we have Mark Lawrenson, we have Ray Houghton, and our very own Tom Bradshaw, the smiling hipster.
Yeah, I've got absolutely no idea. Something to do with hairstyles? They've all got some pretty funky hairstyles going on in there.
I'm going to give you a bonus point for that. No, that is not the answer. You'll never have got the answer in a million years. The answer is you can hire all of them on a website to send you or a friend a message, and they all charge different amounts.
I mean, yeah, I had absolutely no chance of getting that, did I? Let's be honest. And what website is it? OnlyFans?
Can you imagine? I asked Gary Waddock for some special video footage. My second part two of the question was, who do you think is the most expensive one of those to get a message from? Who is the cheapest? And how much do you think to get a message from Tom Bradshaw?
I'm going to guess that Tom Bradshaw is the most expensive as a current player, and he probably earns a decent wedge at Millwall, so he's not going to get out of bed to do a 20 quid video on someone's stag do. Cheapest, there's a few competitors in that list who aren't worth very much. I think Gemmo backs himself too much. He'll be quite high. Aldridge obviously won't be in there. Lawrenson won't be. I'm going to go with Gary Waddock as the cheapest.
It is in fact our good friend of the pod, Nicky Banger, who is the cheapest. He comes in at £23 for a message. John Aldridge was the most expensive. I think he was something like £68. And our very own Tom Bradshaw, if you do want to get a message from him, is £35. If we ever get sponsorship, if anybody wants to sponsor us £35, I will spend it directly on getting Theo a message. Theo, what message would you like from Tom Bradshaw?
I would like a motivational speech to remind me that results can turn very quickly when we're 11 without a win in the autumn in the Championship next season.
Love that. Theo, thank you ever so much. You've done a tremendous job. Definitely more Craig Short, Leyton Orient than Gary Waddock in any of his games. How do you feel it's gone? Are you happy?
I've absolutely loved it, and to be compared to that day at Leyton Orient is a real privilege because that was one of the best away days I can remember.
Matt has promised us he is back next week, so we will try and do another one next week.
And I'll be back in my cupboard.
You'll be back, yeah. Know your place. Thanks ever so much. It's been absolutely lovely doing this with you. I need to go quickly now and start editing this and getting it published as soon as
Nice.
possible. Thanks for listening, everyone. Good luck at the weekend, and hopefully we'll join together next week again in much less nervous mood than we've been today.
Fingers crossed.
The big man with a big goal on the big occasion.